Días de Vino y Radio, un programa presentado por Gabriel Ruiz Lopez para todos los amantes del vino, agricultores, enólogos, sommeliers, bodegueros, comerciantes, restauradores, periodistas, conectando directamente desde Barcelona, España.
Gracias, Patricia. Thank you, Patricia. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the place you are in the world. Well, today, finally, we are going to visit Portugal. There's a long time I wanted to go there. And we will discover their wines, which are quite interesting, even a little bit unknown in Spain, despite of the proximity. And we are going to do this with a peculiar character. It's not a Portuguese person. It's someone who moved to Portugal a long time ago. He's from Latvia, and his name is Slava Izmailovs. He has passed part of his career in Russia, and by the way, he's Caballero del Vino español, gentleman of the Spanish wines in Russia, where he spent part of his career, big part of his career. But he will explain us about this himself. Bon dia,
bon dia. Bon dia, bon dia. Bon dia, guys. Yes, everything is perfect. Everything is right. It's interesting. It's still sunny outside, but it's quite cold temperature. It's like our neighbor from Spain sent us very cold temperature to the ocean.
Yeah.
It's interesting. This kind of temperature here in Portugal is really due to the Spanish plateau, and when it's like we say it's the Salamanca weather.
Awesome.
You know, it's very sunny, but this year it's very cold. And with my experience, almost 9 years living in Portugal, I would say it's the coldest winter we have here since I remember.
Uh-huh.
But about me, I moved to Portugal in 2012. It's true, I used to work, and my biggest part of the life I spent dedicating myself to the Russian market, and still I'm busy working there. But of course, it was my goal in the past, to discover more Portuguese market. As I was working for a company very specialized in Portuguese wines, I speak about table wines, not the port, not about Madeira. So I decided to move here to find my place here. And I thought in the past, my goal was to visit every important producer and every important corner to see behind the curtain, to see how it works, who are the people, to be, more familiar with everything what happened in Portugal. Mm-hmm. And now for me it's like the starting everything going in like a spiral. It's not now. It's kind of second cycle started, because I would say this is the moment where I recognize the new revolution started in Portugal. Much more new producers, small producers, more natural, more biologic, more biodynamic. People try to show Portugal from even a better perspective.
Yeah,
so
yeah. A little bit parallel to Spain, no?
Yes, I would say the same. And Spain is a country to which I was dedicated a lot working in Russia. And since I moved here to Portugal, of course, I couldn't escape to my wish to dedicate myself a lot, especially to Galicia. Because it's very close to me, and I spent a lot of time in Galicia. That's why we'll speak later my project in Rías Baixas. But anyway, my goal from the beginning on was, to focus on Portuguese wines, to know every small corner, to be able, how I say, to going around without using the GPS. Now if I need to go somewhere, I can really avoid using the GPS. So it starts to be very familiar to me, everything.
Mm-hmm. And let's start from the beginning. How did you reach the wine world? Being Latvian.
It's interesting. As you told, yes, I'm coming from the Russian circumstances, but from Latvia. So I was born there. And when I was young, I moved with my older sister to study in Germany. And as a student, with playing football, I met a guy who was the owner of the wine agency. He was also linked to football, everything linked to the football, especially in Spain. And he offered me, like a student, a small job in his wine agency. And at the beginning, I thought like a football playing, young guy, and then wine agency working. And suddenly, like it's like with a vacuum cleaner, it took me so inside. He started to pay some small courses in the German Wine Institute. I went there myself, and suddenly I discovered a huge world for myself. Then I did some practice in Italy, doing some vintages in Chianti and wine fairs. When you go to Provine, this huge world to discover, from wines of Turkey to wines of Romania to Israel, to Spain. And suddenly I thought this topic is without the end, and it's always like really to get you inside more and more. And so after that, I used to work a couple of years at this company. And then I follow one German producer to Moscow to help him at one presentation, German Wine Embassy. And then suddenly I was invited to work in Moscow for big companies. And as a young guy, I couldn't resist. Of course, nightlife in Moscow. I say, okay, I try myself. And suddenly I can say, not thinking about Germany, even to be very linked to Russia. This year will be like 14 years working for Russian companies.
Uh-huh. Yeah. When I met you for first time, like 7-8 years ago, you were importing from Rosagro. You were
exactly. This company was really focused on Portuguese wines, and it was a chance to move from Moscow, from a huge city. When you get older, when you get children, I mean, Moscow is a beautiful city when you're alone to live, but with the family to organize the life is difficult. So I got this chance to work for a company, and I say, okay, I would like to do it, and I have a goal to develop the Portuguese portfolio better. So please let me stay in Portugal. And they said they accepted. And since 9 years, will be soon 9 years, I dedicate myself to Portuguese wine world, I would say.
Yeah. That's why you discover Portugal and you fell in love with this country.
Exactly. This is a link because it's not going from nowhere. It's my decision, my will, to learn better, to learn at the place, and to meet the people, to speak with the people, and to really to understand the material better.
Yeah. It's understandable, perfectly understandable. And I remember a conversation between you and me when I told you I decided to move to Moscow. And you told me you are crazy. You are moving to Moscow and moving from to Portugal. We do crossing paths.
Yes, the opposite. But I believe each experience is always good, no matter what you do, no matter how it works for you. But I think each experience make our like baggage of our things, of our thoughts, of our experience. This is what makes us different.
Mm-hmm. And then after discovering Portugal and being there, you decided to make your own wines, yeah?
Exactly. Because at the time, even I moved to Portugal, I knew a lot of people already. The famous producer from Portugal, started to be friends, and step by step, even understanding what happens in Portugal, I thought like there is a chance to produce lighter style, more fine wines, and of course, I couldn't resist to start to do my own project. because every person, I think, in the wine world, no matter where he is, dreams one day, you know, to how to say, to express yourself, to do your own thing, you know, to say this way I like, because finally you met the people, you accept the way they work, and then you say this is more closer to my philosophy. This is not the way I like, but finally everybody, almost everybody, dreams to put hands on, you know, and to do your way.
Yeah. It's totally understandable. And then you travel through Portugal to discover regions, to decide what where to
It's true. It's true. My goal at the beginning when I moved here was like I did region by region, you know, to visit each important producer, big or small, it doesn't matter. I wanted really to taste everything, to be everywhere, to see the most important vineyards, to see to be during the harvest there, you know, to discover how the people work, how they think. For me, it's important how the people think. And so I came here and I did a lot of kilometers.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be like every day 300, 400, 500 kilometers, like going back home. In the next morning, start again, and then I wanted to be everywhere and to meet everybody.
Yeah. And finally, you decided for 3 appellations like Douro, Down, and Bairrada.
Because probably at the beginning, first of all, the regions are not that far away from me where I'm based. And maybe I didn't find at the beginning good place to do Alvarinho wines in the north of Portugal. I almost said in Rías Baixas, but I was quicker in Rías Baixas to do Alvarinho than in Vinho Verde. So I decided on these 3 regions because I think there is a philosophy which is very close to mine. I like Bairrada because of the sparkling wines and the fantastic white and red dry wines. I like Dow. It's the region which is actually 50, 60, 70 years ago really represented the stable wine philosophy of Portugal. And then Douro because it's very, how do you say, region with a lot of energy at the moment, a lot of producers. There is a kind of huge revolution since 10, 20 years, and it's one of the most powerful regions. And I would say, together with some Galician wine regions, Douro is one of the most beautiful regions in the world. And I have experienced to travel to California, to South America. I never visited New Zealand. I don't know how it looks like there, but the most impressive regions for me, and at the same time expressive. It's probably, if I can choose 3 of them, I would say it's Tenerife, I would say it's Ribeira Sacra and the Douro. The most like tragic and at the same time beautiful and at the same time powerful. It's something unique.
Yeah. I agree totally. They are unbelievable.
So there is. I mean, it's not to refuse to do the wines there.
Yeah. So let's go into your project, which is called what's the name? Fio da Terra.
Like the lines of the world, of the earth, of the world. So my idea was, as I told, I saw in the wines when I came here. Now the things that I told you changing a lot. There is a huge turn in the mind and the philosophy of a lot of producers, even the big ones. When I came here, the average wine was like 14.5, 15 alcohol, very rich, powerful, like concentrated. And my idea was like, I want to do a wine which is really fine, elegant, easy to drink, you know, but at the same time, you can keep a bottle for a longer time. It can develop, and like to find this balance between lightness, finesse, and the aging potential.
Yeah,
so
with character.
Exactly. To elaborate this character, which is also very close to your personal philosophy of drinking the wine. Because finally, one thing is my job as the wine buyer is to taste a lot of wine, but it's one part of the life, and another part I'm really dedicated wine consumer. You know, I really like to drink the wines, to good food, to share the wines with my friends, and we would like to drink a couple of bottles, not only to taste a glass or two. So my goal was this: the idea we can produce in this very sunny country, you know, in the very quite with the hot climate, produce a fine wine. So I understood that I don't really like the wine produced in the stainless steel. So I tried to find vessels, you know, which will be more natural in the character. But anyway, when you elaborate the wines, they could be done with a little bit more oxidative, less fruity style. So my experience as a buyer, I spent a lot of times in Europe, in different countries, different continents. So my vision was, you know, these barrels for the white wines from Austria, big old barrels, which are quite neutral. But anyway, the wines, when you do the wines inside, they will be like a little bit more open, a little bit more round, less crispy, less fruity. But anyway, will be still neutral. The barrels will not how to express. For example, I wanted that my barrels will be not ingredients in my wine. It will be just, you know, the vessel to elaborate wine inside. So as I have a lot of connections in Europe, I asked my friends to find really good quality. And you understand the Austrian, German people, they are very precise, correct, how they treat the barrels, even the old ones. And I understood, if you buy the old barrels, you have to trust people. As I have a lot of friends in Austria, I did my WCT diploma actually in the Austrian Wine Academy. So I decided to buy the used barrels there and to produce my white wines in the old barrels made of acacia. It's more natural wood than the usual one what we use for making barrels.
Yes. But let's talk about winemaking later. First, I wanted to talk about the regions, to start one by the regions. But I wanted to...
We can start by Douro. Douro is the region, the most famous, as you told, and probably the most known in Spain. It's like also it's kind of the river which affects a lot the region. It's starting finally in Spain, and you have in Spain some regions very linked to the Douro River. And this beautiful region, of course, in the past was mostly known for producing fortified wines, like mostly it was like port wine made of white and red grapes. And in the last 20, 30 years, the things changed a lot. And nowadays, I would say it's more about producing the table wines, dry wines, than the port wine. Port wine, anyway, is a topic very serious and very difficult. I mean, when you produce the wine and then keep 40 years and then just put it on the market, I mean, for me, it's difficult to really to understand, to get through it. Because imagine you produce the wine and your grandchildren will sell it. It's kind of, there is how to understand this relation to this product. It's, anyway, each producer understands his own wine as a baby. I mean, you treat your baby, and finally it will play with another children.
Yeah. One question: when you say table wine, your meaning is still wine, no?
Still wine. It's still wine, not fortified, not sparkling. The general wine, because the people here in Portuguese they say table wine. It's interesting actually when you open the wine list in the restaurants in Portugal. There is they differentiate the wine by vinho maduro. and then vinhos like verdes. What means like the young wine,
And mature
really,
wines, yeah.
and matured wines.
Aged wines, yes.
Aged wines, and mainly it's meant that the wine is normally aged in the wood for a longer time, and it's more massive, more powerful wine. There is, I would say, the general differentiate in Portugal is like light wine and heavy wine.
Yeah.
Like fresh wine and the heavy wine.
Now I put you this question because in Spain, when we say table wine, we make reference to the cheapest wine, which is not.
Yeah, but yes,
this is
true, unfortunately. But when you speak about the old Vega Sicilia, it was table wine in the past.
No, but now it starts to be out of fashion.
Of the region, yes.
Yeah, because there are some wineries who precisely last program was Norbert Robertson, who is a master of wine, and he's producing a wine outside the DO appellation of origin, so it's considered table wine, but it's still expensive. I mean, it's still high quality, and some wineries start to produce wines outside of the appellations because
of course
the rules.
But okay, not to be confused, I mean table wine is a still wine, generally not fortified, not without bubbles, not manipulated somehow else, so general wine. And it's like when we continue with the Douro, as it's so expensive to produce port wines, people start to move more and more to still wine. And now, if I would say 40, 50 years ago, the share of the fortified wines was like 80% of all production in Douro. Now it's, I would say, like 60, 70% of still wines and only 30% of fortified wines.
So
and there is yes, because of course it's understandable. The port wine is long money, and the still wine is much faster money. You know, and you need the cash flow to survive nowadays. There is more and more concurrence, and you have to really see to be more economically stable. So I decided
in the area where you grow the vineyards for the still wines in Douro.
Generally, there is almost 45,000 hectares of DO, and DO is divided into appellations. It's like port wine and Douro DOC as still wine. And it depends, of course, on the restrictions, because you cannot produce port wine from everywhere. It's strongly controlled. But generally, from your vineyard, you can choose to produce port wine or still wine. And people more and more choose to produce still wine because it's economically more reasonable.
And in terms of climate, landscape, and soil, do you find any parallelism with our Ribera del Duero?
No. Because when you move from, it's already started in Spain. Arriba del Douro. It starts to be more mountainous, not so flat, and then the very terrace agriculture. So everything on terraces, you know, and it's more close. The valley, there is a special microclimate. It's continental. Although generally people think about Portuguese as like a maritime climate, close to the ocean, but as Douro is protected by two ranges of mountains, the most important is Mourão from the Atlantic influence. It's strongly influenced by the continental climate. It's much more rough, the climate. It's very hot in summer and dry, and very cold in winter. And so this kind of separate, I would say, is the only type of climate you find in Portugal. In Douro, it's a special region for this kind of climate.
In terms of
and of course the river. it also brings this special freshness. You know, sometimes it's humid.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of soil, which kind of?
It's generally schist. There is some schist with some granite inside. They call it mica schist. And on the outskirts of appellation, you find the granite.
Mm-hmm.
But what is interesting, for example, if we think about like geology of other regions of the world, there is so much studies, there is so much map showing the different kinds of soils, different structure. What is interesting, there is not work at all dedicated to geology generally, to geology in this way in Tudoro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in the last time
people just generally know there is a schist, there is some granite, some mixed with granite inside, deep granite inside of schist, but generally people don't know where is it exactly what.
Uh-huh.
People, you can find the blue schist, you can find sometimes the red schist with more iron, but there is no really study to show where is what.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, but plus in the last times, the terroir concept is gaining more and more.
For sure, but there is still lack of professional information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you find, for example, in Austria, like you find in Germany, like especially in France, in some regions, for example, in Rías Baixas, people study. I know that some places have like more arcillia, some places more granitic, some more sandy granite, some more schist, even in Rías Baixas you can find. So the people dedicate much more to this topic. And in Portugal, they accept actually the very old, one of the oldest DO in Europe. DO was created in 1756. It's probably the oldest DO in the world. But at the same time...
When?
1756.
Wow.
By famous Marquis de Pombal. Actually, he was, at that time was a big wave, how do you say, of door wines, port wines were a very important part of the business, part of the import. It was a very famous wine, was sold for a lot of money in Portugal, and people throughout Portugal started to fake the wine.
Mm-hmm.
You started to produce wines in Alentejo, especially in Bairrada. In Bairrada was, and suddenly you could find the wine in England on the bottle written port wine, but actually produced in Alentejo or Bairrada. And then at that time, the famous families of Douro, the rich families of Douro, they went to Marquis de Pombal and said he should stop, to protect actually the region, to protect the special wines. And at that time, he draw a line, draw a border, pointing the region in 1756 and starts to fight against the fraud, against the fake of this famous wine. And since then, you have a special region demarcation.
Mm-hmm.
And they put special stones with the name of feitoria around the region. You can still find these stones in the region, and since then you have a demarcated zone, demarcated by famous Marquis de Pombal since 1756.
Interesting story. And then in Douro, mainly the production is red wine, right?
Generally, yes, I would say, but due to the fashion, due to everything, people produce more and more white wines. For example, I produce 3 wines. In my project, I had 3 wines, 2 coming from the upper Douro, from more mountain Douro. It's closer to the Mursa city. It's outskirts of the demarcation zone. But what is interesting, because due to altitude, due to the special climate, even more rough climate, even more fresh because of altitude, it's the majority of the white wines what you can find there of the white grapes in the region. So it's dependable.
Yeah.
But of course, the majority red grapes you find in the region.
And the varieties you're working with?
It's difficult to say because, for example, my goal is always to find the supplier of the grapes. The grapes, what I buy for my project is always the old vineyards, always co-planted, old vineyards with probably more than 40, 50 different varieties. What was important in the past? You know, in the 70s, there happened a big revolution in the wine region of Douro. People wanted to promote more the dry wines. They wanted, to explore more the region. And so the European program started that they wanted to select the best grapes, for the future of the region. They started to make studies which grapes more suitable for the production of wort, of the Douro wines. At that time started the fashion to consume the more alcoholic, more rich wines, more dark red wines. And then it was afterwards in 80s, 90s was even more stronger influence in this direction by Robert Parker. And so the people really they left abandoned the old diversity of the Douro region and so dedicated to the special grape varieties. And then there was a law, if you follow this program, like what was initiated by the European community, if you focus on this elaborated, selected grapes, so you will be, supported by the money of European government. Imagine when you will replant to do a new vineyard, and if you focus on these 5 red grape varieties, on these 6 white grape varieties, which at that time they thought are the best to do red wines and Porto, mainly dedicated to Porto. So if you focus on these grape varieties, you will get promotion of European community, and so they will substitute almost 80% of the new vineyards if you plant a new vineyard, but only if you focus on this grape. But the past of the Douro was also versatility. Always each vineyard planted by the normal peasants were like planted by 40, 50 different grape varieties. They wanted to achieve every year more or less equal in terms of quality harvest. The quality of the harvest doesn't matter if the rain came earlier, if the rain came later. So in average, they achieved by planting the vineyards with different grape varieties. First of all, it's more rich in terms of the character. I mean, not in intensity, but just character. It was more interesting, the wine. And then in average, if one variety this year couldn't do best, the other maybe did better. And so on average, you have a fantastic quality every year. And then in 70s, 80s, they went in different directions. They unified more or less the vineyards. So you could find everywhere since 70s and 80s, the most vineyards with 20, 30, 40 years. Now you find only like ᴅÍᴜ Nacional, ᴅÍᴜ Franca, Tinta Barroca, Tinta Roriz, and Tinta Count. These 5 main grape varieties selected as to be mentioned to be like the best potential ones. I'm not agree. And coming back to your question, so I still, if I did my wines, I still was searching for the old vineyards to source this old philosophy of Douro.
Understood. But there are these 5 main varietals, yeah?
At the moment, I would say the 60-70% of the vineyards replanted ones, you find the mostly dedicated these 5 grape varieties. And even these vineyards planted separately by grape varieties and no co-planted as in the past.
Okay. Well, now let's go to another region, which it sounds a little bit, rings the bell. This is Dao.
Down, yes. I would say it's down. It's pronounced like with the nasal sound at the finish. It's difficult to pronounce. People learn it from the first years after they're born, and I cannot pronounce like this. I say down. And this is for me one of the most interesting, probably the most interesting region in Portugal. Used to be, if we turn back the time and we'll come 70 years ago, I would say 80% of all still wine people drank at home was always the wine of town.
Uh-huh. It has several sub-regions, no?
Yes, like Douro as well. Douro has officially 3 sub-regions. One called Baixo Corgo. Corgo is the name of the river, coming actually from the area of Monterrey, more or less.
Uh-huh.
From north of Portugal, from southeast of Galicia, and then this river come inside close to the Teso da Régua city, is the old capital of port wine, and it divides at place he comes inside the Douro River. It divides region to the Baixo, below the river and up the river.
Uh-huh.
And Cima Corgo. And Cima Corgo is officially now the most interesting and most potential and most sublime sub-region. And then Douro Superiore is the hotter part. It's more dry. The wines generally are more concentrated, more powerful. If we see, for example, port wine houses, so they try to blend wines from different quintas. Quinta is more or less the same as finca in Spain. You have different small fincas where they different shapes from different places, different altitude, different character, different style of the wines produced there. And so they say from Douro Superior more power, from Cima Corgo is more elegance and balance. And so we have officially also 3 sub-regions in Douro. But generally, if we are much more close and focused on the region, there is much more versatility in the regions in Douro. Now you have officially also like 5-6 different regions, but only now they start to focus on it. Only now they start to communicate using different regions. But I would say generally it's wine made closer to the Serra da Estrela, the highest mountain on the continental Portugal, and then you have the wines a little bit more far away. Generally, we speak about granitic soil. It's also vineyards, the most altitude in Portugal, so it also starts to go to the plateau of Spain. So after Bairrada, we go up, we cross the first range of the mountain, and we go to the plateau, and we go closer to the highest, as I told, the mountain in Portugal, Serra da Estrela. And so we have the vineyards ranging between like 400 and almost 1,000 meters above sea level. It's weathered granitic soil. The wines are more fine, elegant, more silky tannin, more pronounced acidity, more fresh wines. I would say the wines with the most potential to age the wines of Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, still the same, like in Douro, there is old vineyards co-planted with different grape varieties.
Mm-hmm.
And young vineyards mostly focused on Touriga Nacional, maybe with some Altrocheiro, maybe with some Jaén, what is called in Bierzo Mencia.
Mm-hmm.
So we find this important grape variety in Down. And
how you call it in Portuguese?
Jaén.
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 Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then the red grape, as I told, important, Touriga Nacional, Jaén, what is Mencia, and Altrocheiro, but also you can find the ᴅɪᴏ, what you find in Portugal as Tempranillo, and then a lot of old grape varieties. I like a lot Alvarenhão, You find Tinta Pingueira, a lot of, but it's mostly you can find it in the old vineyards. And the white grape varieties nowadays, the most fashionable one is Encruzado, but also you find the Bical. The grape varieties, what is very specific for Bairrada, and then you find Malvasia, what is very important also in the old vineyard, Malvasia, and then you find Entrosado, Bical, Malvasia, you find Barcelo, but more Celum, because it's also grape varieties what people a little bit more forgot about. And generally the old vineyards are always mixed.
So I see that Portuguese, they kept quite faithful to their own varieties. They have no Cabernet Sauvignon and all this.
They do, but historically, you can explain it very easy. The country during the time of Salazar, of the regime of Salazar, was very like a closed country. And so it was like a country living its own life, not very open to the other world, and so they kept this tradition. They didn't follow the fashion what you could find in Europe. So they were isolated, and so by this isolation, they kept the way they used to live before, and only with the revolution in the end of 70s, with beginning with entry to the European community. So then start to see what happens in the world, and since this time you can find some people start to bring Cabernet, Merlot, Syrah, but mostly to the southern part of the country, mostly to the regions of Setúbal, close to Lisbon, maybe a bit more to Alentejo, maybe to Extremadura, what now is called as just Lisboa region. And you could find there. But generally, the country was so long time isolated, it kept the style, old way of living. And so that's why it's one of the countries now, it's a jewel, to keep so much native grape variety.
Yeah, this is understandable, because to reach the influence from France, they had to cross a big portion of Spain.
The France, I would say, for that time was more like being the people went to exile in France. They were sent by the Salazar, in exile, and spent the time there, away from the country, away from their home. And France was not the thing like they put attention to. And in the time of colonies, Portuguese people, the big nation colonies, the France for them was not something special.
Yeah. And the difference with Spain is this, that we during the phylloxera times, we are
exactly
neighbors. There was an exchange of
course, Rioja was suddenly, Catalonia was suddenly a place where the big producers of France, they could find a substitute for business, substitute for grapes. It's like for them it was suddenly the source of grapes, source to continue the business, and it was very close. Imagine like from Bordeaux, you go to Rioja, it's probably like 4 or 5 hours driving.
Also, the wine world also follows geopolitical reasons for development.
It's true. You can follow all during the past. As soon as France had the war with England started to find the wines in Spain and Portugal or somewhere else.
Yeah.
As soon they were okay, so they start to negotiate again. So it's, of course, geopolitical problem there is. We speak about Salazar, isolation.
Yeah, but Porto, same as Serie, they had a very big influence from England.
For sure.
The British have made a lot of things about the wine world, of course. And well, coming
back to Dow. Dow for me is the most fine, it's most delicate. And now people, you see how much also it's like a pot, like a hot water like a lot of people boiling water, like a lot of energy, like you see a lot of people from Brazil, like top producer like this Nipo, top producer like from Tinta do Vale Meow. People do nice projects. One of my good friend, one of the best producer, like Antonio Madeira, is Portuguese guy, but who was born in Paris, grown up in Paris, worked as an engineer, but then like suddenly he felt, no, I'm so in wine. I changed my life, everything. I go back. I do like biological. I do myself everything. You know, there is a huge movement, and people especially when they find all the wine, like the same like in Rioja, when you find the wines from 50s, 60s, 70s, you get like, you know, like burned by this, you know, something special. You can do this kind of world-class wine in this region. And I want to do this. And there is a huge evolution what's happening actually now in this region. Beautiful, elegant, huge potential. The wines with longevity and the wine stable, still wine, you can enjoy like glasses and glasses. Mineral wine with a lot of tension without being so bold, big and muscled like in the Douro. In Douro it's much more difficult to produce fine wine, much more difficult. Only with the help of like old vineyards, with the more north-faced slopes, you know, and in Dow with the huge mountain bringing the freshness, you know, with this more acidic soil, granitic soil, there is much more finesse you can find. And suddenly, like Dow is the wine which makes you crazy and which brings you a lot of pleasure, drinking glass by glass. And this is the.
I see your passion. Yeah, I see your passion about Dow. I can see that.
It's true. When I came to Portugal, when I started to discover the wines, I was more like focused on Bairrada wines. We will come afterwards. I was like Bairrada, this acidity, this, you know, this tension. This is a vibrating wine. The rest, which age similar to the old Rioja or old Barolo, you know. But then I discovered this finesse and beauty, this elegance of Dow. And then when I started to learn the old bottles, you know, to find special things, and then I thought, no, this is very, very special region.
Good.
Due to the altitude, due to the acidic soil, granitic, due to the also more continental character, more rough character, but not maybe so dry and hot as Douro. It's still, for example, in Douro, what is interesting, there is no big drop of temperature during the night and day in the summer or at the harvest time. So it's like at the harvest time, like 35 during the day and 29 during the night. And in Dow during the harvest, which is normally in Dow, it's delayed by 2 or 3 weeks in the comparison to Douro. And during the harvest, in the afternoon, you have like 30 degrees, 29. And in the night you have maybe 12 or 13, the double, because due to this place which is very close to the high mountain.
Yeah, then you have a longer cycle.
Much more longer cycle. The grape varieties they are much more concentrated without being too alcoholic potentially.
Yeah, the maturation of the grape is more.
And generally, if you compare Dow and Douro is average. Like you find the wines. Of course, the new generation of producers in Douro make wines with 12, 5, 13. So my wines is generally about 12 degrees. But generally, the wines of Douro they are 14, 14.5. In comparison, the same vintage in Dow is always like 12.5. It's almost 2 degrees of alcohol less. It's much more freshness, and acidity is much higher.
I see.
So it's about freshness, elegance.
Yeah. And then the difference with Bairrada is more to the ocean, no? More.
Exactly. But the Dow is also the continental climate. It's also high plateau. It doesn't feel really the influence of the ocean.
Doesn't feel it.
Yes. If you would speak about the influence of the ocean, it's the Bairrada. Bairrada is a direct line between like 10, 12, and 25 kilometers. All the vineyards, if we speak about the Douro, 3 different subregions, Dow maybe 5, 6 different subregions. In Bairrada, there is the 2 main zones, I would say. One is like more northeast, and one is more southwest.
Mm-hmm.
So southwest is vineyards around the Mealiada and the second city is Cantanhede. It's like there is in Cantanhede a cooperative which produce 1/3 of the all input of Bairrada, the cooperative in southwest, and the rest there is a couple of cooperatives because you see isolated country. Salazar wanted to a little bit to help people outside the big cities, to gain a little bit the wealth, what they didn't have the peasants in the past. So he started to unite people in the cooperative to give them possibility to earn a little bit more money to producing their own wines. In the past was more about the negoce business, so big houses, they bought grapes or wine from the producer and brought on the market under their own label. And Salazar wanted to give possibility and to bring small farmers away from this dependence from the big houses. So a lot of cooperatives were created at that time, and until now you find in every region a lot of cooperatives. It's it's a kind of pedigree of Salazar. It was his life work. He wanted to really to bring people out from this very poor way of life. He wanted to give them possibility. That's why in the past he built so much schools in all these rural areas. Nowadays, this type of the Salazar school, they're all abandoned. But in the past, he built a lot. He wanted to bring education, to bring wealth, way of life. But cooperatives still now they affect a lot of landscape of Portuguese winemaking. There is a lot still about the cooperative wine.
Yeah, and then this particular influence from the Atlantic, it makes a good area to make wine.
Yes, exactly. When we speak about the Douro vineyards between 150, like 500-600 meters above sea level, down between 4 and 1,000. We speak in Bairrada between 20 and maximum like 100 meters above sea level, maybe some small hills, maybe 150 meters, but it's very close to the ocean. It's the region which is not protected at all. So that's why there is a special philosophy of producing sparkling wine, because when the harvest is spoiled by the early rain, so you lost everything financially. So very long ago, people started to secure a little bit financially themselves, and to do like from one vineyard, it's a specialty of Bairrada, 3 harvests. First harvest of the almost green grapes went to the distillation to produce aguardente. Second harvest, yes, exactly. Rojo is made from the grape skin.
Yeah, but from the skin, yes.
It's like bagaceira in Portugal. Mostly, it's typically made from the red grape skin. Then aguardente was made young, fresh, acidic wine from the not ripe grape. It was one financial insurance. Second insurance was to when the grapes start to turn the color, then they start to pick the grapes. The majority of them to produce basic wine to produce a sparkling wine. And then when the harvest is perfect, they did in special years, they produce every third or fourth year, they produce a special red wine. And then, for example, if there is a big confusion with grape variety down, and then even more in Douro, in Bairrada, it's much more easier. There is a main grape variety. It's Baga, very typical for the region. Generally, put more on the slopes because it needs more less water in the earth. It must be more drained soil, more sunny place, because its grape variety is difficult to achieve perfect maturity. Mm-hmm. And so the bottom part with more sandy clay, but a lot of calcareous. Mm-hmm. So more flat parts for the white grape variety, which needs a little bit more water. Mm-hmm. The grape variety is also very easy. Mostly it's two. It's Bical, what we also can find in Dow, and Maria Gomes. And as the white grapes, they want to have less hydric stress. So bottom part is always with a little bit more water. Uh-huh. And especially with the clay, which is capable to keep a little bit more water, to give in the more dry, in the dry times back to the vine. And the grape variety red is the king of Bairrada, is the Baga. And generally from Baga, they did 3 times the harvest. First for the aguardente, second for the sparkling wine, together with the white grape. And then if the year is perfect, they did wines very structured, very powerful, with a good freshness acidity due to the Atlantic influence, but also the character of Baga, which is grape variety with a thin skin, but with a lot of acidity. Mm-hmm. And so they did special wines, and you can find some sparkling wine in Dow and Douro. But generally, if we speak about the sparkling wines of Portugal, it's Bairrada.
Yeah, but in Bairrada, you are making sparkling or still wine?
Three types of the wines. In Bairrada, is the region you find everything. Uh-huh. All tradition, you find the fortified wine. Uh-huh. Like in the past they did with the Baga grape variety. Mm-hmm. And then you find the Orujo, you find the aguardente, you find the white wine, you find the red wine, and you find the sparkling wine. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. This whole region...
in your project, Fio da Terra is...
I was focusing on the white grape varieties because I had already, my focus on the reds in Douro, reds in Dow. And then I wanted to have really freshness acidic wines. I think in terms of the white wine, the aging potential of the Bairrada is enormous. I have my experience of drinking wines from 50s, from 60s. There is the wines stay so fresh and young.
Yeah.
So I dedicate myself to the whites of Bairrada.
And you are using acacia, as you said before.
Exactly. For all my wines, excepting white wine, I made twice in Down. All the whites I always make in all the big barrels. They run 1,000 liters because I want to have less. I want to have less concentration. I want to have less power. I want to have freshness. I want to have acidity. I want to have less fruit aromas in my wine. So, and I think. I started to do in 2013. It's interesting, one story. At that time, if people ask me, what is like your philosophy? I told them, I want that the less is more. Mm-hmm. So less of everything is sometimes more.
Menos es más.
Exactly. And one day, now in Confinamiento in summer, I was following one Zoom conference, like presentation of a good friend of mine, is one of the best producer, Luis Seabra, one of the best producer in Portugal. He making the wine in Down, Douro, and Vinho Verde. And he was saying he was actually with what is the name? Your Spanish master of wine, one of the.
What Spanish what?
Master of wine, new one, the last one.
Fernando Mora.
Fernando Mora. He was with Fernando Mora conference, and he answered. I did say it like maybe 7 years ago, first time. and he explained his philosophy, how he is doing the wines now. He is saying with the same words. I want the less meaning more.
Yeah.
Less of everything, meaning more. And this was my philosophy. I came to the country still on the big wave of the partyrism. But I told myself, with my quantity, every year producing 6,000-7,000 bottles, I wanted to do the wine. Even if I cannot sell it, I will drink myself with a friend. And what happens actually now, when I go to Rías Baixas, somewhere in the world, I spend my Christmas and the New Year in France. On the way back, I visited some producer actually to the north of Segovia. And I bring my wines always to share with the friends, to make the exchange. And now I'm really happy that I really have chosen this way of working. And now I'm happy to exchange the wines with good friends of mine.
Yeah. Well, now there is a big trend of people who are doing this, making wines here.
Fresh wine, even in Spain, you can follow the same. Of course, Galicia used to do it always. But even the Ribera del Duero, even the more powerful region in Rioja, you find people doing really elegant fine wine.
And in Canary Islands and many
especially Canary Islands. You know, also big trend, friends of Ilvina, my friends, and Jonathan from Suertes del Marqués. So everybody wants to do enjoyable wines, drinkable wines.
I think nowadays we are living a third revolution in the world.
Exactly, and I think I'm really happy to be at that time here, exactly at that place.
It's exciting, yes.
Very excited.
Yeah. Well, time flies. We are almost 1 hour here.
So people start to be tired.
No, but you know, radio has schemas of time and so on. But when we talk about something passionating, time.
It's true. Time flies.
Yeah. And for the end of the interview, I always keep a couple of questions. One is your favorite grape, which is your favorite?
In Portugal.
However, doesn't matter where.
Oh, no matter what, I would say it depends on the period of life.
Or you can say one of Portugal
for now.
And one outside.
Okay, I would say if we speak about Portugal, if to choose one grape, I would say still I think it will be Alvarinho. I would say. Then after I would choose, of course, the Bical, for sure Bical, and then and the next one I would choose maybe Entrosado. Alvarinho, Bical, Entrosado. For the rest, it will be for sure the Jaén, what is meant in Spain, Jaén. Then I like a lot Alvarinho. What you can find another name in Galicia is called Brancilhão. Brancilhão, Alvarinho in Portugal. Alvarinho, for sure Alvarinho, and I like also the grape variety, not very now appreciated in Portugal. It's Marufo, Mourisco. It's actually the grape variety. Which in the past was at the sorting table thrown away. Big grape, not very colored, actually more to eat, but producing very fine, light, elegant wine.
Oh, curious.
But generally, I would say Jaén, Alvarinho, I like a lot, and Bastardo. Jaén.
A lot of favorites you have.
No, if I call three, it's Bastardo, Jaén, and Alvarinho. The worldwide, for sure, Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
If I choose one. And the second one for the moment, I would choose Chenin Blanc.
Chenin Blanc.
Yes.
And well, the last question.
And then of course, Burgundy, Chardonnay, and of course, Riesling. First Riesling and then Chardonnay. Chenin, Riesling, Chardonnay.
And well, for closing the program, the last question is to match a song with a wine.
I would if I have a possibility better, as we speak about three regions of Portugal, I would try to match a region with the kind of song. I would say the vinho. First, I wanted to speak also about the vinho. Vinho verde for me it's a light like bossa nova Brazilian music.
Mm-hmm.
For the Douro, I would say it's something like more pop. You know, like it's very.
Tell me
What is that?
tell me
One
what-
song.
Wait.
I would say the down. It's like down for me. It's like Dua Lipa. It's the most singer.
But tell me one song, because with this song we will close the program.
I would say okay. I choose the down. I would say like Antonio Madeira. It's more like it's so difficult to say. It's more like David Bowie. Song is difficult. It's more like David Bowie.
Let's dance.
It's so what?
Let's dance.
For example, Let's Dance. It's so rich but not so heavy. It's so elegant, fine to hear without being very bored. Want to be too powered. I would say like David Bowie.
Okay.
Let's Dance.
With Let's Dance, we will close the program of today. I thank you so much for your time.
Not at all. It was a great pleasure for me.
Great pleasure to see you again, even in the screen, and hope soon in person.
We too. Hope, for me, I hope to be back soon to the Spanish restaurant, to the Galician restaurant. I really miss it a lot.
If once you get lost in Barcelona, give me a ring. And
I will. I do it for purpose.
Okay, good. So thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Well,
Bye-bye.
friends, till here the program of today with Slava Izmailovs. I hope you enjoyed the trip to Portugal. And as always, enjoy life, drink good wine, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.